lonely.
Good afternoon, passengers. This is a pre-boarding announcement for Flight 89 Metro. We are now inviting those passengers with small children and any passengers who require special assistance to begin boarding.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to welcome each one of you to New England. What if I told you that some of the smallest states, some of the first settlements, and some of the most delicious foods all come from the same region of the United States? Well, it's true. Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Vermont make up New England. And they're what makes this part of the country so interesting. And we are here today to mend a wall. Before we dive deep into the poem, I want you to be familiar with the setting and a few other aspects. First of all, how many of you love to visit abandoned buildings and places? Abandoned means once there were people used to live there, but now people have left it, nobody is there. And such places look very mysterious, lonely, and even creepy or scary. What do you find in common in such places? You must have noticed they look really overgrown by the vegetation. The climbers, roots, and even trees must have taken over the whole place. It is like nature reclaiming or nature taking back what really belongs to nature. Now, shouldn't we know something more about the poet Robert Frost? Robert Lee Frost, that's his full name. He lived during the period 1874 and 1963. This popular American poet was mainly known for the realistic way in which he depicted the rural life in America. Rural means the village life in America. His command of American colloquial speech was another reason for his popularity. Robert Frost's works are mainly set in the region called New England, which I mentioned in the beginning. And he is the only poet who has 4 Pulitzer Prizes to his credit. Frost was also the poet laureate of Vermont. 2 of his most famous works are The Road Not Taken and Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. The poems have been included in the English textbooks around the world. Many of you might have learned this in your lower classes. These lines from the second poem were the favorite of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. These words are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Now let's read the first half of the poem. Mending Wall by Robert Frost. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends a frozen groundswell under it, and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps even 2 can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair where they would have left not 1 stone on a stone. But they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps, I mean. No one has seen the maid or heard the maid, but at spring mending time we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go. to each the boulders that have fallen to each. And some are lows and some so nearly balls. We have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game, one on a side. It comes to little more. There, where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine, and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the corns under his pines, I tell him. He only says,
Good fences make good neighbors.
good fences make good neighbors. I hope you were able to get most of the meaning with the help of the visuals. Now, girls, keep your pencils and scribbling pads ready. Note down the meanings, underline the main points. Ready? Look at the first line. Something there is that doesn't love a wall. The poet starts without much introduction, straight away. He is talking to us about some mysterious power in nature that hates all walls. That power works against the walls. And in the second line, he gives us the proof for that statement. He says that this unknown force sends a frozen groundswell which causes the boulders to spill. Boulders means large rocks. Now you need to get some extra information to grasp the meaning of that line properly. First point, what are the seasons in the cold regions like America, Europe, etc.? Second point, how dry stone walls are constructed. And the third point is a little bit of physics. First of all, which are the four major seasons? They are spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Again followed by spring, summer. It's a cycle. I will come back to that point. You must have seen dry stone walls in village areas, especially in the hilly regions. They are made by arranging the stones available in that area. Cement, mud, etc. are not used in their construction. And so itself, they are not very strong and they may not last very long. They are in need of frequent maintenance. Next, the physics part. What happens to water when it freezes? It expands as its volume increases. You can see that depicted in this figure here. During the extreme winters, the underground water freezes and pushes up the soil, or we can say the soil or the ground swells. So, what will happen to the dry stone walls? They will collapse. Here, the poet blames that unknown force in nature for this phenomenon. This groundswell even destroys the roads and other constructions in the cold countries. So, I hope the meaning of frozen groundswell is clear now. As I told you earlier, nature will reclaim everything in the long run. Okay, what happens when the stone walls collapse? It creates gaps in the walls. The gaps are so wide sometimes that even two people can walk abreast. Abreast means walk side by side and facing the same way. The gaps are wide enough for two persons to walk side by side. Here, the poet is talking to us about an issue he faces during the spring season, soon after the winter. The stone wall that separates his property from his neighbor's property gets destroyed in a mysterious way. We saw him making a guess. It can be due to the groundswell sent by the unknown powers of nature. In the next lines, he considers another possibility. It is probably done by the hunters. In the visuals, you saw them hunting with the help of dogs. Now let's read the lines. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair, where they would have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. You know what happens? Chased by the dogs, the rabbits may hide among the gaps of the stone walls. The dogs, with their good sense of smell, will detect their presence and inform their masters by yelping. Yelping means the short, sharp cry of the dogs. So, what will the hunters do? To please the dogs, they will pull down the stones and catch the rabbit. The poet says he often comes after the hunters and repairs the walls. But the weird thing is that no one has ever seen how the gaps occur. It can be natural reasons like the swell or man made reasons like the work of the hunters. Anyway, every spring season, after the winter snow melts away, when he comes down for repairs, he finds the gaps there. Now, let's have a look at the summary of what we learned today. The poet says that there is some mysterious power in nature that hates walls. During winter, it sends ground swells that create gaps and destroy the walls. The hunters who dig for hiding rabbits may be responsible too. Though there are no witnesses, during spring mending time, the gaps are invariably found there. So, dear girls, please read the poem once again and enjoy it. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Bye.